Good morning, everyone. Buenos dias. Wait. You're in the boogie down Bronx, and we are an energized community ready to fight for those that need us the most. Good morning, everyone. That's what I'm talking about. Welcome to the boogie down Bronx. I am Assemblymember Marcos Crespo. I have the honor to help open up today's program. I first of all want to acknowledge some of the dignitaries that we have, and I will begin with our host right here, the incredible and dynamic Hostos Community College, and want to recognize President Gomez, who's here. Let's give it up for President Gomez. Another president in our midst who's allowed all of us to, for those of you visiting the Bronx, you're welcome to stay and spend some money. Let's acknowledge our borough president, Ruben Diaz Jr. I have a number of colleagues, bear with me. We have state senators, Martin Dilan, Senator Jeff Klein, Senator Shelley Mayer, Senator Diane Savino, and Senator Jose Serrano. Let's recognize all of them. From the New York State Assembly, Assemblyman Michael Blake, Assemblymember David Buchwald, Carmen de la Rosa, Natalia Fernandez, Ellen Jaffe, Victor Pichardo, and Nili Razek. Let's give it up for our Assembly members. The one lone daring councilwoman, Vanessa Gibson. She's here repping all of them. I know they're in committee meeting today. We also have from the governor's administration, Alfonso David, counsel to the governor, Fran Barrett, interagency coordinator for nonprofit organizations. You could clap for them. Howard Zucker, commissioner, Department of Health. Sheila Poole, commissioner of the Office of Children and Families. Guillermo Linares, president of HESC. Arlene Gonzalez Sanchez, commissioner at OASIS. Sam Roberts, the commissioner of the Office of Temporary Disability Assistance. Laura Gonzalez Murphy, director of the Office for New Americans. Give it up, guys. Sonia Osorio, president of Now New York State. Steve Choi, executive director of the Immigration Coalition. Monsignor Kevin Sullivan, executive director of Catholic Charities. Bishop Orlando Finlater. We have also advocates and a number of other dignitaries and reps. And let's not forget our friends in labor. Gloria Middleton, President, CWA Local 1180. Wait. I said CWA is in the house. Nelson Rivera, Administrative Vice President, TWU Local 100. And all of our brothers and sisters in labor who are here with us, thank you for joining us. We're going to hear from the governor. We will hear from the sponsors of the legislation being signed today, Nili Razek and Senator Diane Savino. And we're going to hear from Steve Choi from the Immigration Coalition. But what you're going to hear about is something near and dear to everyone in our community, something personal to the people of the Bronx, people of this city, the people of this state. The fact that today's headlines, we are seeing what's happening across this country and the attacks, there's no other way to put it, the attacks on our most vulnerable communities, those that have helped build this nation and continue to move this nation forward. And we're going to begin today by hearing from someone who has been a champion to the immigrant community even before he was governor, defending them as our Attorney General, defending them as our governor. He has demonstrated that commitment to not only the people of the Bronx and the Latino community in the aftermath of Hurricane Maria, that first flight into Puerto Rico, bringing supplies, bringing resources. That was Governor Cuomo's leadership mobilizing on our behalf. And when you look at his efforts fighting the Trump administration, whether it's been the lawsuits and whether it's been the investment in our state budget into supportive services, or whether it's been speaking out and standing out and being at the front lines, defending immigrant communities, restoring hope that something better is out there for us, and demonstrating what progressive democratic leadership means for immigrants everywhere. That has been our governor. That is our champion. Ladies and gentlemen, if you respect and support immigrants, if you believe that we can do better, and if you believe that New York State will continue to lead, then I need you to stand up right now and give it up for our champion for immigrant communities, Governor Andrew Cuomo.
Thank you, brother. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Please. It's great to be back at Hostos, the boogie down Bronx, as they like to say. You do like to say that, the boogie down Bronx. Marcos Crespo, he is a great assemblyman. He is a great advocate. He's a great fighter. He is the person who you want on your side. Let's give him a big round of applause, Marcos Crespo. Your Borough President, Ruben Diaz, who's doing a great job. Give him a round of applause. I do have to tell you a little story about the both of them, though. We have, once a year, something called the Adirondack Challenge. The Adirondack Challenge is when we invite everybody to go up to the Adirondacks to see the Adirondacks. Because a lot of people in New York City area, they just don't know what we have in the Adirondacks. So to get people to experience the Adirondacks, we go up to the Adirondacks and I invite all the legislators. And one of the events we have at the Adirondacks Challenge is a whitewater rafting race where you have separate teams, everybody is a team, and then we race down who's the fastest in the raft down the river in the right white water. Last year, we have a big race, 30 rafts. The Bronx had a raft, and I had a raft, and my raft won the race. Legitimately, timekeeper certified by KPMG, the whole course. The Bronx, Boogie Down Bronx, protests the competition. I didn't even know you could protest the competition. But they come with a claim that they had a better time, the timekeeper was biased, this whole Bronx conspiracy theory. So I said to them, I never heard of a protest of the competition. I don't know that it's legal, but if you really believe you're better, fundamentally better, we will give you a rematch. And by the way, you don't even have to go back to the Adirondacks. I offer you an open challenge to do a raft race down the Bronx River, I said. Bronx River is a great comeback story, by the way. So I said to your borough president, Marcos Crespo, I said, whenever you are ready, I'll bring the rafts. You know what I've heard? Nothing. Nothing. It just all went away. All went away. I don't want to say your borough president and your assembly member are afraid to compete against the powerhouse state team we have assembled. But I just want to reiterate, whenever you are ready, Mr. Borough President, I will see you on the Bronx River. Just bring your paddle. Give a big round of applause to the Borough President, Marcos Crespo. To all my colleagues in the legislature doesn't get enough credit. We have done a lot of great things in this budget and in this legislative year. You'll hear about one of them today, but New York has done all sorts of firsts. First and most aggressive bill to protect women against sexual harassment we did this year. First disclosure of IEs on the internet. So we've done a lot of great work, and this is very practical. It's sad that we have to sign this bill, but it is important. And let me start with a story somewhat offbeat, but it's what I was thinking about this morning. I was about 10 years old, and I found that my father had a little office upstairs in the house in Queens, a little safe. It was like the size of a shoebox, and it had a little combination lock on it, and it was blue, crinkly, paint finish. So I went to my father, I said, can I have this safe? I had really precocious sisters who would just ransack my room. So I said, let me put everything in this little safe. And my father said, oh, no, you can't have that safe. That's from the life insurance company. That's where I put the life insurance policy. And I said, a life insurance policy? What's a life insurance policy? I was 10 years old. He said, well, you know, God forbid something happens, and I'm not here to take care of you kids. That's what life insurance is about. I said, what do you mean, God forbid? Where are you going? He said, well, you know, you could, God forbid, have a car accident. God forbid, you could have a health issue, but I would want to make sure you kids are taken care of. And I was in my own way traumatized as a young child. You think about losing your parent. How can that be? Car accident, health issue, and what do you do? And here's life insurance that can pay your bills, but you don't have your parents. But life can create uncontrollable perils. And you have to be aware of them and protect yourself, and that was life insurance. My kids are much smarter than I was. One of my daughters came to me a few years ago and said, "Dad, I want to sit down and talk about your life insurance policy." But the concept was uncontrollable events, health events, and when my father spoke about them, he prefaced them all with, "God forbid this should happen. God forbid I have a car accident. God forbid I have a heart attack." We have perils today that are not uncontrollable perils. They are not God forbid perils. They are government-created perils. Government-created. Purposefully government-created perils. Women are in peril. They could lose a right to choose. They could continue being victims of sexual harassment with no address from the federal government. Union members face peril. Supreme Court came down with the Janus decision today. Another decision written by Trump's Supreme Court for Trump's politics that now endangers labor unions. The environment is in peril, and new immigrants are in peril. This federal government has declared war on new immigrants. And God bless them, by the way. They made no secret about it. You can't say they deceived us. All through the campaign, President Trump was talking about his wall. I want the wall. I'm going to build a wall. It's going to be a big wall. Trump on the wall. Everybody's going to be on the other side of the wall. We're going to build the wall, throw everybody out, and then lock the door, and everything is fine. It was his answer to every question. He took all the anger, all the hate, all the anxiety that was in society, and he gave it a nice, simple target. It's the immigrants. You're nervous about your job. You're nervous about your income. It's the immigrants. He started with the wall. He then went right to the travel ban. Yesterday, the Supreme Court came down, confirmed the travel ban. Another Trump political doctrine approved by the Trump court. It's Islamophobia, clearly, cloaked as national security. What they're doing on the southern border. I mean, just even think about this. Zero tolerance policy they announced April 7th. We're going to arrest every family. When you arrest every family, what you automatically trigger is the separation of the children. Because you know the law says you can't put the child in the detention center. So they announced this policy, knowing they're going to separate children from their parents. Where are we? Who are we? 2,400 children separated. They didn't even have a plan. They didn't even know where they were going to go. We have hundreds in our foster care system here in New York. The foster care systems the foster care homes, a lot of them are getting backed up. They're then referring the children to private foster care. They're trying to find extended family members to take the child. This is all done by the federal government. And it is real. And it is happening. Federal government has taken the agency ICE. ICE was supposed to be an anti-terrorism organization. It was formed after 9/11 to fight terrorism. ICE is now a political police organization for the president's political agenda. That's what ICE has become. And it is a deplorable use of a police department to politicize it the way Trump has. We have ICE walking onto farms in upstate New York and just grabbing a worker, no warrant, no notice, no identification, just grabbing workers, and they disappear. New York City, we had ICE grab the delivery man who was delivering a pizza and then disappeared. They wanted to deport the pizza delivery man within 24 hours. Grab him, get him out. Literally within 24 hours. Never had a chance to go say goodbye to the wife or the children. That's where we are. This is a government-created peril. As Marco said in New York, we are the most aggressive state in the nation fighting back against these policies. We are suing the federal government to stop the separation of families. I believe it violates due process. A California judge yesterday decided that it did. We're providing services to the children who are separated at the foster care homes, and we're providing services for the children who've been placed in private foster care, and we're working to reunite the families with the children who have been separated, because the way they did it was so ad hoc, was so chaotic, that they're having trouble now making the connections, and we're working with them on doing that. And we have the first program of its kind in the country called the Liberty Defense Fund, where we will provide counsel before a person is deported. But that is the reality of this new peril. It is a new peril. It's no longer just, God forbid, I have a heart attack, or God forbid, I have a car accident. It's maybe ICE will grab me at work and deport me. And what this bill says, recognizing that painful reality, what Assemblyperson Rozek and Senator Savino, as prime sponsors, and the other members have done. The law previously said you can appoint a guardian for a period of time in case of death, disability, incapacitation, which were the God forbid scenarios. Given this new reality, we're changing the law to add the right to appoint a guardian if you are deported. Because the way ICE operates and what's happening out there is they can grab you, throw you in the back of a truck, and you can never see your family again. So there is now another category of unforeseen possible trauma. Government created, but you have the right to appoint a guardian in case of deportation. We're going to sign the bill, and I applaud the bill, and I applaud the leadership on the bill because it's necessary and because it's real. But I tell you this, I'm anxious for the day when I can sign a bill repealing this bill, when no one lives in fear of deportation, because we understand that these are not the American values that this federal government is now spreading throughout the country. This is not who we are at our best. This is not our character. These are not our values. We are not people who take children from mothers and fathers. That's not who we are. We are not people who believe immigration is bad, because we are all immigrants. We are not people who believe diversity is bad, We celebrate diversity. Diversity is what made America, America. For this president, for this federal government to now take the position, well, if you are a new immigrant, then you're repugnant to the concept of America. There is no concept of America without immigration. We were nobody. There was no one here. There was no one here. We had to put up a sign that said, there is no one here in this land. We invite everyone to come join us. That was the invitation that we put out. White, black, rich, poor, didn't matter. Come here to this new land and we'll form one community out of all of us. E pluribus unum, out of many one. That was us who said that. And now, this federal government preaches the exact opposite. They may not believe that the American promise is real. We know the American promise is real because we live it in New York, because we have 19 million people in this state from all over the globe, and we are better and stronger for our diversity. And we will not allow this inhumane, disgusting behavior, embarrassingly disgusting, is what this country is now doing on the border. There are no other words for it. And that people have to now live in fear of deportation. I talk to people all day long who say, I'm afraid to leave the house because I'm afraid there'll be an ICE officer who comes and grabs me and I'm gone. And that's why we have to sign this bill. But this is not the way America's supposed to be, and we will change it, and we will fix it, and the people of this nation are going to rise up and tell this president and this Congress this November, this is not who we want to be. We reject your vision of America for a kinder, sweeter, gentler, truer vision of America. And that'll be the November agenda, and then we'll come back and repeal the bill next year. Thank you, and God bless you.
Thank you, Governor. It's really hard to follow that. But I wanted to thank you for your quick action in signing the bill and for being such a steadfast leader through it all. It's your decisive action that New York is leading the fight against Trump's war on immigrants and ensuring that families and children here in New York are protected. It's through your leadership that immigrants like me and my family, who actually became citizens and official New Yorkers on June 27th, not too long ago, feel welcome every single day right here at home. And while the federal government tries to tear immigrant families apart and instills fears in the hearts of immigrant parents, while Washington, D.C. is paralyzed and unable to reform our broken immigration system, we're taking action, we're fighting back, and you're doing all that you can do to keep families together, so thank you. In these challenging times, Governor Cuomo is stepping it up. Whether he's challenging ICE's aggressive tactics right here in New York, spearheading a lawsuit to stop Trump's family separation policy, or offering legal counsel to immigrants in need through our groundbreaking Liberty Defense Project, he's leading the fight. And today's new law is another step in that direction. It brings humanity to an inhumane situation imposed on all of us by our federal government. I also want to thank many of my Assembly colleagues who are here today and who sponsored the bill, including Ellen Jaffe, David Buchwald, Carmen De La Rosa, and Natalia Fernandez. And all of the advocates who worked on this bill, including NILAG, who's here today, and for sending such a strong message that New York stands with all immigrants. Now, please join me in welcoming the State Senate sponsor the tenacious State Senator Diane Savino.
Oh, thank you, Tom. Tenacious and short. I want to first let me acknowledge someone who was overlooked earlier before, our wonderful Lieutenant Governor, Kathy Hochul. And I want to thank Governor Cuomo, not just for signing this bill, but for being a leader in this state, for this nation. Time and again, he has stepped forward, identified an assault on New Yorkers, and all Americans, in fact, and developed a solution right here in New York State. Whether it was the Trump tax policy, which is going to devastate New York State and New York State homeowners, whether it's immigration policy, workers' rights, over and over, our governor, Andrew Cuomo, has stood up and said, not here, not in our state, these are not our values. Because in New York, we have not forgotten the values that built this state and this nation. And under the leadership of our governor, we will continue to fight to uphold those values that are represented in our harbor by the Statue of Liberty. The governor said he's a child of immigrants, I'm a child of immigrants. I'm only a second-generation American, and I cannot imagine what my grandfather and grandmother would think if they could see the way immigrants are being treated in this country right now. They would be appalled, and we should all be appalled. That's why this legislation may not seem that important to some people. It's an arcane updating of the Surrogate Court Procedure Act. But it is so critically important to children and families. You know, I started my career, some of you may not know this, I started my career almost 30 years ago as a caseworker in the city's child welfare system. And unfortunately, there are times when government must separate children from their families, from their parents. And it should only be done, as the law says, when they are at imminent risk to life and or health. That's when government should separate children from their parents. Not because of this. And I will tell you, having had to do that, it is traumatic. Children go kicking and screaming from their parents, even under the worst situations. But to separate them from a loving parent and throw them into a system where no one knows what's going to happen to them is horrifying. That trauma will live with these kids forever. And that's why it's so important what we're doing here today. It may not seem like a big deal, but the governor is right. It is that important. That God forbid government comes along and snatches your children from you and puts you on a bus to a detention center, and you have no idea where they are. Well, here in New York, we're going to allow you to name a trusted family member, if you have one here, or a trusted family friend, someone that you know loves your child as much as you do, so that while you have to deal with what Washington is doing to you, your children are safe and they are protected. Time and again, this state has stepped forward. Time and again, under the leadership of Governor Andrew Cuomo, we have stepped forward to protect New Yorkers from the assault that's coming against them from Washington. This bill is that important, and I will tell you, Governor Cuomo, I have, on my walls in my office, I have 108 pieces of legislation that have been chaptered into law, many of them with your signature on it. But I would say today, this will be the most important pen certificate I hang, and I hope that we get to the point where we can repeal it. I now want to, I would like to also thank my colleagues in the Senate, of course, my partner, Senator Jeff Klein, the members of the Senate Democratic Conference who helped make sure this was the last bill that was passed on the last night of session, to all of the advocates, and now I want to introduce Steve Choi, the Executive Director of the New York Immigration Coalition.
Good morning. Thank you to the legislature. Thank you, Governor Cuomo, for this important legislation. My name is Steve Choi. I'm the Executive Director of the New York Immigration Coalition, and we represent more than 200 member agencies, stretching all across this great state, from Brentwood and Long Island all the way to Buffalo. We're here today because this federal government, this administration, has a wrong and misguided belief that immigrants are somehow a curse and not a blessing. And because of this wrong and misguided belief, this administration has launched brutal attacks against our immigrant communities. You know them all. The cancellation of DACA. It's going to throw 50,000 young New Yorkers, going to rob them of their ability to work, their ability to be protected against deportation. Thousands of New Yorkers being deported, snatched up from right off our streets, put into detention and deportation proceedings. The zero-tolerance policy that is literally ripping babies from the arms of their parents. Is this the kind of country that we live in now? And just yesterday, the Supreme Court enshrined into law Trump's odious Muslim ban. As much of an institutional demonstration of hatred and discrimination that I've ever seen. And so the attack and the assault against our values of welcoming, of tolerance, of equality and justice, that has been nothing short of horrific. But we cannot forget about the human toll as well, and the human toll has been tragic. Let me tell you about one young lady, Esmeralda Dolores. She is a rising junior who lives right here in the Bronx. Earlier this year, her father was detained right outside a local courthouse and is set to be deported. That is a tragedy. She and her family have received the assistance of one of our strongest member agencies, New Immigrant Community Empowerment, NICE. They have gotten some money from the Liberty Defense Project that the governor has championed, and they've been able to provide some critical assistance. But all of the rest of the work of finding an attorney, of navigating the legal and judicial systems, of translating for her family, that all falls on Dolores, on Esmeralda. And in the face of that, Esmeralda, in the face of all of that, she has shown true bravery, courage, resilience, determination. That is what the American dream is all about. Let me say that she is doing what countless generations of Americans have done before her. Come to this country and find a way to succeed, and they make this country better. They make New York better as well. And we are lucky to have Esmeralda in this auditorium with us today, and we're lucky to have her in New York State. I'd like everybody to stand up and recognize Esmeralda. Esmeralda, if you can stand up briefly. Esmeralda is sharing her story and speaking out against the treatment of her family and against these deportations. And she is here today to support this important legislation. That Assembly member Rosick has signed into law, has pushed through the Assembly, and that Senator Savino has also pushed through the Senate, and that the governor is going to be signing. And let me tell you about this legislation. It's going to ease the burden on young people like Esmeralda. It's going to make sure that they have assistance in the face of this government, in the face of this president's attacks. And so we as the New York Immigration Coalition and our members, we welcome this legislation that actually supports immigrant families and makes sure that we can demonstrate New York's commitment to supporting immigrant families. I want to take this moment to thank Governor Cuomo for his leadership, not only on this legislation and on the lawsuit, but also at a time when immigrant families are being torn apart, babies are being ripped from their parents' arms by this president's hateful zero-tolerance policy. At a time when we have needed leadership, the governor has stood up, spoken out, and been one of the loudest voices calling for an end to this hateful policy. And I want to note that outside the spotlight, he has actually been one of the few elected officials to actually think constructively. What can we do as a state to support these children and to support these families who are being housed at this state? Thank you, Governor Cuomo. I'm proud to stand with you and all of our elected officials as we continue to work together to protect immigrant families in New York State. Please welcome Governor Cuomo back up to the stage as he signs this bill into law.